Good morning. We'll try it again. Good morning and welcome to the house of the Lord this morning. It's a beautiful, sunshiny day, unseasonably warm. Yeah, on the last Sunday of February. Imagine that. So I guess Tuesday it's supposed to be like 75, 70. It's going to be almost 80 on Tuesday. And by Tuesday night, it's going to be almost, or Wednesday, I think it is. It's going to be almost 20. We're going to have over a 50-degree temperature drop on Wednesday with a chance of snow. Yes. Yeah, I understand, Ryan. It's just. Yeah, well. That's Missouri. We have weather for everybody here, so you just got to wait your turn to see which day it's going to be on. Yeah, Missouri. But anyway, we're glad you're here today, and if you're joining us online, we welcome you as well, and we hope you find this beneficial. I'm going to offer an opening prayer for this morning, and then Brother Steve we'll get the Sunday school class started. Father in heaven, we thank you for this beautiful day to gather together and worship and fellowship. And we just ask in the name of Jesus that your Spirit would be here and move among us to guide and direct us to the truth that you would have us understand this day. And not only understand it, Father, but that we would implement that within our lives and our relationship and journey with you. Thank you for loving us so much. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Andy. Well, we finished up the book of Alma, and we're ready to start the book of Heleman. Now, just as a summary, I'm going to drop back into Alma a few verses here. Alma, the 30th chapter, is very short, and it deals mostly with migrations northward. But just for the sake of continuity, I'm going to pick up here at 18. That's Alma 30, 18. That's only 4 verses before Heleman. And it came to pass also in this year that there were some dissenters which had gone forth unto the Lamanites, and they were stirred up again to anger against the Nephites. And also in this same year they came down with a numerous army to war against the people of Moronihah, or against the army of Moronihah. Remember, he was the son of Moroni, who Moroni passed the command of the armies over to him. Verse 19 again. In the which they were beaten and driven back again to their own lands, suffering great loss. And thus ended the 39th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. Now that would be 53 BC for anybody who's keeping notes on this. And thus ended the account of Alma and Heleman his son, and also Shiblon, which was his son. So we've had over 14 years of nearly continuous warfare. Now, we don't get much information in the Book of Mormon about the condition of the population, but there were so many tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of men killed, that there would have been thousands of widows and orphans. And there would be a lot of inequality among the people, much like we have today. And that leads to poverty. Because if you're not under if you're under a system like ours today of a democracy and capitalism, which basically they were under, greed winds up making those with less advantage very poor. So that would have led to all kinds of abominations of a sexual nature, of greed, of all the same kinds of societal turmoil that we have today. And a lot of these dissenters that went northward were dissenting away from the church because they were a democracy, but they were a theocratic democracy. It was always prophets of God who were made chief judges. So instead of having a secular head of government, they had a spiritual head of government. And those who didn't like the choices they had, didn't like the laws based on, you might say, Scripture, like our laws originally were, you would have a lot of dissenters. And this has led to a lot of this warfare because dissenters have gone over to the Lamanites and stirred them up. Or those of the royal blood of Judah have tried to reestablish a kingship themselves. And we're going to see how this plays out in Heleman. And I want you all, we're to be paying attention to the signs of the times. I want you to relate these things to what's going on in our nation today and in the world, because it's a pattern. And the closer we get to the return of Christ in 3rd Nephi, the more the pattern will fit us. Now, the book of Heleman is the son of Heleman, who was the son of Alma. And Alma had gone to live with the anti-Nephi Lehi's, the Ammonites, and then he was not heard of anymore. And the part in parenthesis in my book, anyway, that first introduction actually is off the plates. Some of the stuff I'm telling you, you will have heard from Ray Treat, but I'm repeating it as I go along. This introduction is actually off of the plates. It's not something that was added by Joseph or the printer or anything. Okay, so we begin with the introduction. An account of the Nephites, their wars and contentions and their dissensions, and also the prophecies of many holy prophets before the coming of Christ, according to the record of Heleman, which was the son of Heleman, and also according to the records of his sons, even down to the coming of Christ. And also many of the Lamanites are converted, an account of their conversion, an account of the righteousness of the Lamanites and the wickedness and abominations of the Nephites, according to the record of Heleman and his sons, even down to the coming of Christ, which is called the book of Heleman, etc. Okay, verse 1. And now behold, it came to pass in the commencement of the 40th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. That's 52 years before the sign of the coming of Christ. There began to be a serious difficulty among the people of the Nephites. For behold, Pahoran had died and gone the way of all the earth. Therefore, now he was the chief judge. Therefore there began to be a serious contention concerning who should have the judgment seat among the brethren, which were the sons of Pahoran. Now these are their names which did contend for the judgment seat, which did also cause the people to contend, Pahoran, Paanchi, and Pacameni. Now these are not all the sons of Pahoran, for he had many, but these are they which did contend for the judgment seat. Therefore they did cause 3 divisions among the people. Essentially, we have 3 divisions today. We have the Democrats and the moderate Republicans and the radical Republicans. Nevertheless, it came to pass that Pahoran was appointed by the voice of the people to be a chief judge and a governor over the people of Nephi. And it came to pass that Pacameni, when he saw that he could not obtain the judgment seat, he did unite with the voice of the people. But behold, Paanchi and that part of the people that were desirous that he should be their governor was exceeding wroth. Therefore he was about to flatter away those people to rise up in rebellion against their brethren. And it came to pass, As he was about to do this, behold, he was taken and was tried according to the voice of the people and condemned unto death. For he had raised up in rebellion and sought to destroy the liberty of the people. How wise those people were in comparison to us. Now when those people which were desirous that he should be their governor saw that he was condemned unto death, therefore they were angry. And behold, they sent forth one Kishkumen, even to the judgment seat of Pahoran, and murdered Pahoran as he sat upon the judgment seat, and he was pursued by the servants of Pahoran. But behold, so speedy was the flight of Kishkumen that no man could overtake him. And he went unto those that sent him, and they all entered into a covenant, yea, swearing by their everlasting Maker that they would tell no man that Kishkumen had murdered Pahoran. Therefore Kishkumen was not known among the people of Nephi, for he was in disguise at the time that he murdered Pahoran. And Kishkumen and his band, which had covenanted with him, did mingle themselves among the people in a manner that they all could not be found. But as many as were found were condemned unto death. And now behold, that's how they valued their democracy. And now behold, Pachameni was appointed, according to the voice of the people, to be a chief judge and a governor over the people, to reign in the stead of his brother Pahoran, and it was according to his right. And all this was done in the 40th year of the reign of the judges, and the 40th year had an end. And it came to pass in the 41st year of the reign of the judges that the Lamanites had gathered together an innumerable army of men. This would be 51 BC. And armed them with swords and with scimitars, with bows and arrows, and with headplates and with breastplates, and with all manner of shields of every kind. And they came down again that they might pitch battle against the Nephites. And they were led by a man whose name was Coriantumr, and he was a descendant of Zarahemla. Now Zarahemla was a descendant of Mulek. So here we have those of royal blood again, the tribe of Judah, seeking to establish their right to rule, or their supposed right to rule. They were led by a man whose name was Coriantumr, and he was a descendant of Zarahemla. And he was a dissenter from among the Nephites, and he was a large and a mighty man. Therefore the king of the Lamanites, whose name was Tubaloth, who was the son of Ammoron. Now Tubaloth, I want to interject there. Ammoron, as you recall, was a descendant of Zoram, of the Zoramites. And Zoram had been the servant of Laban, who was in charge of the royal treasury, or the temple treasury, at the time of King Zedekiah in the Bible, the one from whom Nephi obtained the plates of brass. Now, the northern and southern kingdoms in Israel had been separated for many generations by this time. So Zoram was likely either a member of the tribe of Judah himself, or he could have been a Levite, or he could have been even of Manasseh, because part of Manasseh was included in the southern kingdom. I suspect that he was either a Levite or of the tribe of Judah. Okay, verse 17 again. Therefore the king of the Lamanites, whose name was Tubaloth, who was the son of Ammoron. Now Tubaloth, supposing that Coriantumr, he being a mighty man, could stand against the Nephites insomuch with his strength, and also with his great wisdom, that by sending him forth he should gain power over the Nephites. Therefore he did stir them up to anger, and he did gather together his armies, and he did appoint Coriantumr to be their leader, and did cause that they should march down to the land of Zarahemla to battle against the Nephites. And it came to pass that because of so much contention and so much difficulty in the government, that they had not kept sufficient guards in the land of Zarahemla. For they had supposed that the Lamanites durst not come into the heart of their lands to attack that great city Zarahemla. But it came to pass that Corianumr did march forth at the head of his numerous host, and came upon the inhabitants of the city. And their march was with such exceeding great speed that there was no time for the Nephites to gather together their armies. Therefore Corianumr did cut down the watch by the entrance of the city, and did march forth with his whole army into the city, and they did slay everyone who did oppose them, insomuch that they did take possession of the whole city. And it came to pass that Pacameni, which was the chief judge, did flee before Corianumr, even to the walls of the city. And it came to pass that Corianumr did smite him against the wall, insomuch that he died. And thus ended the days of Pacameni. And now when Corianumr saw that he was in possession of the city of Zarahemla, and saw that the Nephites had fled before them and were slain, and were taken and were cast into prison, and that he had obtained the possession of the strongest hold in all the land, his heart took courage, insomuch that he was about to go forth against all the land. And now he did not tarry in the land of Zarahemla, but he had marched forth with a large army, even towards the city Bountiful. For it was his determination to go forth and cut his way through with the sword, that he might obtain the north parts of the land. That doesn't say the northward parts, it says the north parts. That's Yucatan, because it does swing up towards the north, but the land northward is Mexico. So he was going up into the Yucatan to try to take the city Bountiful. And this would have been the area where most of the tribe of Judah would have lived also. And supposing that their greatest strength was in the center of the land, therefore he did march forth, giving them no time to assemble themselves together, save it were in small bodies, and in this manner they did fall upon them and cut them down to the earth. But behold, this march of Corianumr through the center of the land gave Moronihah a great advantage over them, notwithstanding the greatness of the number of the Nephites which were slain. For behold, Moronihah had supposed that the Lamanites durst not come into the center of the land, but that they would attack the cities round about in the borders as they had hitherto done. Therefore Moronihah had caused that their strong armies should maintain those parts round about by the borders. But behold, the Lamanites were not frightened according to his desire, but they had come into the center of the land, and had taken the capital city, which was the city of Zarahemla, and were marching through the most capital parts of the land, slaying the people with a great slaughter, both men, women, and children, taking possession of many cities and of many strongholds. But when Moronihah had discovered this, he immediately sent forth Lehi with an army round about to head them before they should come to the land Bountiful. And thus he did. And he did head them before they came to the land Bountiful, and gave unto them battle, insomuch that they began to retreat backward toward the land of Zarahemla. And it came to pass that Moronihah did head them in their retreat, and did give unto them battle, insomuch that it became an exceeding bloody battle. Yea, many were slain, and among the number which were slain Corianumr was also found. And now behold, the Lamanites could not retreat either way, neither on the north, or on the south, or on the east, or on the west, for they were surrounded on every hand by the Nephites. And thus had Corianumr plunged the Lamanites into the midst of the Nephites, insomuch that they were in the power of the Nephites, and he himself was slain. And the Lamanites did yield themselves up into the hands of the Nephites. And it came to pass that Moronihah took possession of the city of Zarahemla again, and caused that the Lamanites which had been taken prisoners should depart out of the land in peace. And thus ended the 41st year of the reign of the judges. And now we're about to go to 50 BC. And it came to pass in the 42nd year of the reign of the judges, after Moronihah had established again the peace between the Nephites and the Lamanites. Behold, there was no one to fill the judgment seat. Therefore there began to be a contention again among the people concerning who should fill the judgment seat. Now, there wouldn't be contention if everybody was following the gospel. The contention was between religious people and secular people. And it came to pass that Heleman, which was the son of Heleman, was appointed to fill the judgment seat by the voice of the people. And he was the record keeper. The records are now in his hand. He was the great prophet. Verse 39, but behold, Kishkumen, who had murdered Pahoran, did lay wait to destroy Heleman also. And he was upheld by his band, which had entered into a covenant that no one should know his wickedness. For there was one, Gadianton, who was exceeding expert in many words, and also in his craft, to carry on the secret work of murder and of robbery. Therefore he became the leader of the band of Kishkumen. Therefore he did flatter them, and also Kishkumen, that if they would place him in the judgment seat, he would grant unto those which belonged to his band that they should be placed in power and authority among the people. And that's exactly what happened 6 years ago now. The owner of the largest coal companies in America was made the head of the EPA. An ex-president of Exxon was made Secretary of State. And it goes on. And consequently, they just about destroyed the EPA. The Food and Drug Administration, they greatly reduced their funding and their manpower. And for some reason, this never makes the news. You got to search it out to see what happens. Okay, therefore Kishkumen sought to destroy Heleman. Okay, 42. And it came to pass as he went forth towards the judgment seat to destroy Heleman, behold, one of the servants of Heleman, having been out by night, and having obtained through disguise a knowledge of those plans which had been laid by this band to destroy Heleman, it came to pass that he met Kishkumen, and he gave unto him a sign. Therefore Kishkumen made known unto him the object of his desire, desiring that he would conduct him to the judgment seat, that he might murder Heleman. And it came to pass that when the servant of Heleman had known all the heart of Kishkumen, and how that it was his object to murder, and also that it was the object of all those which belonged to his band to murder and to rob and to gain power, and this was their secret plan and their combination, the servant of Heleman saith unto Kishkumen, let us go forth unto the judgment seat. Now this did please Kishkumen exceedingly, for he did suppose that he should accomplish his design. But behold, the servant of Heleman, as they were going forth unto the judgment seat, did stab Kishkumen even to the heart, that he fell dead without a groan. And he ran and told Heleman all the things which he had seen and heard and done. And it came to pass that Heleman did send forth to take this band of robbers and secret murderers, that they might be executed according to the law. But behold, when Gadianton had found that Kishkumen did not return, he feared lest that he should be destroyed. Therefore he caused that his band should follow him, and they took their flight out of the land by a secret way into the wilderness. And thus when Heleman sent forth to take them, they could nowhere be found. And more of this Gadianton shall be spoken hereafter. And thus ended the 42nd year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. And behold, in the end of this book we shall see that this Gadianton did prove the overthrow, yea, almost the entire destruction of the people of Nephi. Behold, I do not mean the end of the book of Heleman, but I mean the end of the book of Nephi, from which I have taken all the account which I have written. Now, these secret oaths and combinations go clear back to the days of Cain. And if you want to read about that, you look at Genesis 5:13 to 18, if anybody's taking notes. I'm not going to read all this. Genesis 5:13 to 18, and Genesis 5:33 to 43. That's in the Bible, book of Genesis. Yeah. Yeah. And I might point out there that Lamech, who was the fifth from Cain, is the one who killed for the sake of the oath, the secret oath. And he also is the first account, although there may have been some earlier, first account of polygamy was by him. The way it reads in the inspired version, you have the descendants of Seth, who are the high priesthood of God, and you might call the descendants of Cain the high priesthood of Satan. And that's continued in the world ever since. Okay, now we're ready for the second chapter of Heleman. Looks like I'm going to get to where I wanted to get today. Okay, Helaman 2:1. And now it came to pass in the 43rd year of the reign of the judges, there was no contention among the people of Nephi, save it were a little pride which was in the church, which did cause some little dissensions among the people, which affairs were settled in the ending of the 43rd year. And there was no contention among the people in the 44th year, neither was there much contention in the 45th year. Now we're down to the 46 BC, in the third verse, 46 BC. And it came to pass in the 46th year, there were much contentions and many dissensions, in the which there were an exceeding great many which departed out of the land of Zarahemla, and went forth unto the land northward to inherit the land. And they did travel to an exceeding great distance, insomuch that they came to large bodies of water and many rivers. Yea, and even they did spread forth into all parts of the land, into whatever parts it had not been rendered desolate and without timber because of the many inhabitants which had before inherited the land. Now, scripturally, when they call a land desolate, that doesn't mean it's a desert. It just means it is not inhabited, that there are no people there. And they called that the land desolate because the Jaredites had completely wiped themselves out. So in that part of Mexico above the Straits of Tehuantepec was desolate except for what dissenters had traveled there from among the Nephites. And I also might point out that these dissenters were those who were in rebellion against the church. And as a reference to that, we can go over to 3 Nephi verses 1 and 2. Between where we're at and 3 Nephi, we're going to see that Nephi himself went to the land northward to take the gospel. And verses 1 and 2 in 3 Nephi says, Behold, now it came to pass in the 69th year of the reign of the judges over the people of the Nephites, that Nephi the son of Heleman returned to the land of Zarahemla from the land northward, for he had been forth among the people which were in the land northward, and did preach the word of God unto them, and did prophesy many things unto them, and they did reject all his words, insomuch that he could not stay among them, but returned again unto the land of his nativity. So the bulk of these dissenters that we've been reading about for hundreds of pages now, they were mostly dissenting away from the church, because mostly the church ruled the land through the judges and the prophets. And a little more of that will be given here in a few minutes. Okay, verse 3 again. And it came to pass in the 46th year there were much contentions and many dissensions, in the which there were an exceeding great many, which departed out of the land of Zarahemla, and went forth unto the land northward to inherit the land. And they did travel to an exceeding great distance, insomuch that they came to large bodies of water and many rivers. Yea, and even they did spread forth into all parts of the land, into whatever parts it had not been rendered desolate, and without timber, because of the many inhabitants which had before inherited the land. Now, as you go up through Mexico and on into the United States, if you look at a geographic map of the United States, you'll see lots and lots and lots of lakes, but they're almost all man-made. You have in the Valley of Mexico, which is now covered by Mexico City, there were 5 large lakes with many rivers. And you really don't get that again until certain parts of Louisiana and on up to the Great Lakes. Now, I suggest that it probably was the 5 lakes that occupied the Valley of Mexico because of Popocatépetl, I think I said that right, that great volcano has for probably thousands of years spread highly fertile volcanic ash all over the Valley of Mexico. So it was a very desirable, fertile place to settle. So I'm suggesting then, because of the geography, that the land of large bodies of water and many rivers was the Valley of Mexico. And likewise, if you're supporting the Northland argument, the Jaredites would have been north of the Great Lakes, and that was 2,000 years ago. It was a lot colder up there then than it is now. And I had friends when I was in high school that moved down from Saskatchewan, Canada. And even in the 1950s, they could only get 1 crop of wheat a year because of the climate. So it's not likely that great large bodies of people would have gone north of the Great Lakes. And the only great bodies of water up there would be the maritime provinces. Did you have something, Danny? Don?
You could have had friends that lived there 2,000 years ago.
Do what?
Never mind, Steve.
Oh, okay. Okay, now verse 6. And now no part of the land was desolate, save it were for timber, etc. But because of the greatness of the destruction of the people which had before inhabited the land, it was called desolate. Now this would have been about 150 years, plus or minus maybe 10 years, from the time the Jaredites were destroyed. Now, if that had been a temperate climate, there would have been harvestable soft pine for them to harvest and use for building, just like we do. But in those southern semi-tropics and tropical regions, the usable wood is very, very hard and very, very slow growing. Very slow growing. So if there wasn't any usable timber after 150 years, that would support the idea that it wasn't as far north as north of the Great Lakes. Okay, verse 7. And there being but little timber upon the face of the land, nevertheless the people which went forth became exceeding expert in the working of cement. Therefore they did build houses of cement, in the which they did dwell. And they still do that today. And it came to pass that they did multiply and spread, and did go forth from the land southward to the land northward, and did spread insomuch that they began to cover the face of the whole earth, from the sea south, which from the point of Zarahemla, that would be Pacific, to the sea north, which would be the Gulf of Mexico, from the sea west, which would be the Pacific Ocean again, to the sea east, which would be the Caribbean. Now, what is America? 3,000 miles across? North America? Yeah, Jim.
Go ahead, finish it.
That's okay, go ahead.
Well, I don't want to interrupt.
We don't, okay. Go ahead, that's fine.
This is too good to interrupt you. I'm curious about something and want to call on your knowledge of the history and geography there. The cement is extremely interesting, and I don't want to take up too much time with this. What do you know about evidences, really ancient evidences of the cement technology in that area?
Not really. I saw something on Nova or something here recently, but I don't remember what people they were talking about. That they found that they've found cement that they don't know how to make it that hard even today. But I don't know as that was in Book of Mormon lands. That may have been Roman. But they even today they'll take 2 and 3 inch thick limbs, set them vertically, and then run across them limbs to hold them together, and then they'll Central America was so recently raised up out of the depth of the sea that just a few inches under the surface you come to limestone. And they take that limestone and mix it all up with water and make a plaster out of it and plaster it all in. But there's more sophisticated, among the ruins in Latin America, there are much more sophisticated forms of concrete also. And just in the last year or two, they've done a LIDAR survey. Spoke of Corey Andermer capturing many cities. Well, they did a LIDAR survey of southern Mexico and the Yucatan, and they found hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of more cities than we even knew existed down there. Because that radar, ground penetrating radar, basically can just look right through the jungle and see the surface and subsurface of the land and see where there were walls and buildings and fortifications, like the ditches they dug around the cities and threw the earth up on the inside and then built stockades on top. And then when they investigate the mounds of earth, if they haven't been too eroded, they can actually find the post holes where the stockade was built above on the embankment. I mean, it's just remarkable. You can go online and find that. That's where I found it. I just was searching, I think it was Geography of Mexico or Geography of Guatemala, one of those two, where I found all that about the LIDAR work they've done just in the last few months or maybe a little more than a year, and found all these many cities. And also many of the drawings or many of the murals have both white population and black population, and it shows them in warfare. And then I showed the picture on the cover of the book last week, I think it was last week, where the guy in regalia was marching with a staff with the flag on it. It was found on a stelae, which were used to mark notable historic events. Was found at La Venta, Mexico, which was on the Gulf Coast of Yucatan. And gosh, boy, if that doesn't look like Moroni, I've even been tempted to get that tattooed on my arm, but we're not supposed to mark our bodies, so. I mean, it's just remarkable. And then in Belize, on the western border by Guatemala, there's a archaeological site called Lamani on Lamani Lagoon, Lamoni. Now, all the major cities have been abandoned when the Spanish arrived. So they took what the natives called it and tried to spell it phonetically in Spanish. That's why we've got so many weird sounding names for these ruins. But when they phonetically spelled Lamani or Lamani, Lamoni, city of Laman, right there. Still called that by the native people. It was one of the few peoples that was places that was still functioning. It was on a major trade route because the New River flows down out of Lamani Lagoon all the way down to Corzall Bay, where I used to live. And from there, you can go on out to the backside of Ambergris Key, which originally was a peninsula running south from the Yucatan. And there are several trading villages there that have been unearthed. Even one in the south part of the island that I worked on too, where they have a channel going back into the island and then a large basin. And there was fortifications there and markets there and everything. And they did extensive trade up and down the coast, all the way to South America and all the way to North America and the Caribbean, all along those trade routes. In fact, Ambergris Key, Keys is another word for island. Ambergris Key is only an island because the Mayans themselves cut a channel across, separating it from Yucatan as part of their trade route. So it's really, really fascinating. Yeah.
One of the things I've learned about concrete, with concrete in modern times, we've been struggling to match what the Romans did, and we finally figured it out. They were adding volcanic ash to prevent crack propagation.
Okay.
And the whole area down there, Central America, I mean, I heard stories growing up as kids about the story about the farmer who had a volcano in his backyard pop up one day. He's trying to grow crops, and hey, the next day there's a volcano. And they you know, the description of what happened to the entire land when Jesus was crucified and what happened to the people here in the Americas. I mean, volcano, lots of volcanic action, spewing up all kinds of stuff that you can't breathe, blocking out the sun. It's so thick that you can't see anything, and you can't even light a fire because there's more particulate in the air than breathable oxygen. I mean, it had to have been a pretty miserable situation.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. I'm going to really hit on that when we get there.
But they had that volcanic ash, like you mentioned. It was not only making the land fertile, but it would have just naturally included itself into their volcanic or their concrete mixes.
So that's why the Lamanites kept wanting to get back to the original land of Nephi, because those valleys up in those mountains were full of volcanic ash. It was the most fertile part that they had access to. But then after the descenders started going northward, there's volcanoes all the way up through the Sierra Madre,
Yeah.
and especially Popocatépetl, I think it is, outside of Mexico City, which makes those valleys fertile. But the Yucatan itself is not very fertile. There's very little topsoil, and it's lime underneath. In fact, the Mennonite colony in western Belize that raises cattle have to treat the grass because it's so acidic from the calcium underneath. They have to, I don't know what they treat it with, I'm scared to ask, but they have to treat it with something so that it is suitable to graze cattle. So where the land of Zarahemla was, and the land of Mulek and Jershon and Antietam and all those, that was not very fertile land. That was all just thin topsoil on top of calcium. And so they really had to work to make a living on that land. And then when you get up into the Yucatan, from just west or just east of Palenque, if you have any idea where Palenque is, most of you probably do. From there, clear over to the hills that go up southwest and northeast, about 2/3 of the way across Yucatan going east. During the rainy season, that's mostly flooded. Even though the limestone soaks it up real fast and generates cenotes, during the rainy season, about 7 months of the year, there's mostly water standing there. That's why you get some of these funny movements of these armies, because I've been across the highway 17 times, and once you leave La Venta eastward, the highway is elevated up to as much as 20 feet in some places, and it goes so far and then wives off to Merida up to the northeast and straight south to can't think of the name of the town now, because that's right along those hills that run southwest to northeast, and get you out of all that swampy area. And then from there you can go straight east to Chetumal, which is right on the border with Belize. But that whole area in between those mountains and clear over as far as Palenque, during large parts of the year, that's underwater so frequently that you really can't produce anything on it. Yeah, Jim.
Hey, something popped into my mind about, Steve, I've never encountered anybody that is as knowledgeable of the geography and history that relates to all of this. And you have a good view and vision of the geography. I don't. And I don't know where the rest of us are. You know what would be really helpful, if possible, would be, it'd really help me. It'd be fascinating. I don't know if it's something you would want to do, but if we had a map, if we had a screen with a map on it, and it was just back there, and maybe when you taught your class, maybe we didn't even refer to it at all, but if you, in these dialogues you give, if you had a laser pointer and you were able to point this out, it'd be just fascinating.
I don't know how sophisticated we can get, but last week Vern gave me a map like that.
Yeah.
That was based on the Zarahemla Research Foundation map. It may be the Zarahemla Research map. And I'll bring that. If we've got some kind of board we can set it on and all, we can set it right here, and we can possibly see where these places are. We're close to it. I want to get just a little bit further here. Let's see, where were we? Okay, I think we're ready for verse 10 of Heleman 2. The other thing I wanted to point out was that all these things occurred, according to anthropologists and archaeologists, all these things occurred, even they say, between 600 BC and 350 or 400 AD. Now, the major constructions up here, like Cahokia, over by the Mississippi River, the height of that was from 900 AD to 1100 AD. So everything up here, except some possible trading settlements and stuff like that, is much later than what's in the Book of Mormon. And then, of course, apparently there were people here even before the Jaredites at one time or another. The Mayans believed that there had been 3 human populations on the face of this planet. And I don't remember what the first one was, but the one before ours were called the Icemen. I don't know if that means anything or not, but we do find evidence of Homo sapien activity going back way, way, way beyond the Book of Mormon. But as far as more modern things go, the Book of Mormon time period fits for Central America, and then the North American time period fits for sometime after the Book of Mormon. Let's see, we're ready for 10. And it came to pass, as timber was exceeding scarce in the land northward, they did send forth much by the way of shipping, and thus they did enable the people in the land northward that they might build many cities, both of wood and of cement. We don't find that either north of the Great Lakes. And it came to pass that there were many of the people of Ammon, which were Lamanites by birth, did also go forth into this land. And now there are many records kept of the proceedings of this people by many of this people, which are particular and very large concerning them. But behold, 100th part of the proceedings of this people, yea, the account of the Lamanites and of the Nephites and their wars and contentions and dissensions and their preaching and their prophecies and their shipping and their building of ships and their building of temples and of synagogues and their sanctuaries and their righteousness and their wickedness and their murders and their robbings and their plunderings and all manner of abominations and whoredoms cannot be contained in this work. Remember, the Book of Mormon is the religious history of these people. That's why we have to read behind the lines to try to see what's going on politically with the people overall. And what type of wickedness was among the people, and it was the same as we have today. But behold, there are many books and many records of every kind, and they have been kept chiefly by the Nephites. And they have been handed down from one generation to another by the Nephites, even until they have fallen into transgression. Now this is Mormon himself writing. And have been murdered and plundered and hunted and driven forth and slain and scattered upon the face of the earth and mixed with the Lamanites until they are no more called Nephites, becoming wicked and wild and ferocious, yea, even becoming Lamanites. Those last words were words of Mormon. And I think we'll call a stop there at verse 15 because that's a good place to quit and to begin next week. We got it. Well, it is 10 till, so. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, next week is communion.
Oh, that's right. Next week is Communion Sunday. Yeah, so yeah, they do. It seems like I just get started and we get a break. But the week following, I'll bring that map, and if you want, we'll take a closer look at some of these things.